goal, aid in the prevention or elimination of a slum or blight. Apologize for the typo there, or meet an urgent need. The second major test is whether or not the activity is consistent with our 5-year consolidated plan. This is our 5-year plan for how we're going to use our community development dollars. What I've listed on the screen are kind of broad activities that are typically eligible activities, and the ones that are in red are the ones that are consistent with our current consolidated plan. So there's a lot of housing activities, some public facilities and improvements, public services, which I want to delve into just a little bit more. Public services is a very, very broad category. And I've listed some of the example activities that can be funded, anything from healthcare services to fair housing counseling to services for homeless people. And what's important about this in particular is that typically there's a 15% cap on the amount that you can spend on public service activities. So 15% of our allocation can be used to fund these agencies. And that cap has been lifted on the coronavirus funds. So we could potentially allocate 100% of our funding if council so chooses to public service agencies. That's one of the waivers that's been instituted. I want to hit on some key dates and our kind of expected timeline here. The first 2 dates on the screen, May 5th, that's obviously today, so that's happening. And then bolded May 8th, this is a deadline that we have set to receive applications. Real quick and create kind of a draft to begin a 5-day public comment period on May 14th. And that would enable us to bring forward to you at your next meeting a presentation of the draft plan amendment. And as I mentioned, that will be the same date that we'll have a first reading for our annual action plan and our 5-year consolidated plan. So there's a lot happening right now with CDBG funds, and I'll do my best to try to explain and help us through this, but my first time as well. Assuming that plan is adopted on May 19th, we'll submit it to HUD and then begin to work on contracts with the subrecipients. What I do want to mention, and I'd like to clarify, is that by that May 19th date, we do not need to have all of the funds kind of earmarked to a particular organization. What we do need to have is kind of an outline or a goal of how to divvy up the money between different activities. So we need to have, say, and these are numbers I'm just pulling from the top of my head. We want to say we're going to have 50% of the money going towards public service agencies, maybe 25% going towards emergency rehabilitations, or 25% going to another need that we've heard. I've heard something about like a foreclosure prevention program. So that's the type of thing that we're going to be adopting on May 19th if we move forward with this plan. Not specifically which organizations are going to be getting how much money. I hope that makes sense, and I'm happy to answer any questions associated with that. As I mentioned, we are looking to review our first applications after May 8th, which is the deadline at 5 p.m. For those applications, and we'll be reviewing them with a panel, and they'll be looking at each application based on several different criteria, including how well the proposed project aligns with the national objectives, as well as our consolidated plan, the urgency in responding to the COVID-19 crisis. Organizational capacity is another factor, as well as the cost effectiveness of the proposal.
So Hannah, are we allowed, can I ask you a question very quickly?
Of course.
Yeah, I'm curious about the May 8th application deadline date, because this is the first time we are truly rolling this out to the public, right? Where we're hearing a
Right.
real presentation about it and talking a little more in depth about the money. So I'm concerned that that May 8th deadline for applications just may be real soon. I mean, if the public is just hearing about this today, we're not having our traditional meetings. Not quite sure how many people even tuned in tonight. Um, has there been some work put into this already where you all have been advertising that these applications are available and that you wanted submissions by May 8th?
Yes, we've had, I believe that the website has been up for over 2 weeks now, or for 2 weeks now. And we have sent out kind of solicitations to a group. I know Candace has been working on that, working with our communications department to get this in the newspaper as well as on social media. And I think that she's been in contact with a number of different organizations as well. Maybe she can speak to that.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
So yes,
Um,
can you all hear me?
yes.
Yes. Just barely.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna try to get a little bit closer to my computer to
Okay.
speak up. But yes, I have been in contact with several community service providers here in the county. I have been emailing them. They've been asking questions about how funding, will be allocated, what questions they should anticipate on our application. Now that the application is up, we have begun to receive applications. I mean, we have one application already that's been submitted. I know that it is enough time for community service providers because they already know what their needs are. I mean, they're providing services to those families who are being hit at the hardest, so they know what their immediate needs are, which is exactly what we want to address. So I believe that that is enough time. All the questions that I've received, more time has not been one of them.
Okay. So Candace, has this been the traditional organizations that we work with, or did you actually solicit also some of the non-traditional organizations?
We have solicited the traditional organizations that we have funded already, and I've added all the other community service providers that I myself have engaged in within the last 2 years. So there are
Okay.
going to be some recovery programs. There's going to be some, community care clinic. Of course, I've had communication with them, Growing and Helping Ministries, but other agencies that we haven't seen and that we haven't heard from before, they're also included. And I've also made contact with Community Resource Council. They meet monthly,
Mhm.
and there are a host of agencies there, as well as with the TSN Advisory Committee, Project Safe. They're in touch with all the community service providers. So there are providers that traditionally have not applied for city funding, but they are providing services that could be funded under this funding allocation.
Oh, okay. And if I'm understanding you right, also, Hannah, it sounds like there may be another round of applications that will be accepted at some point beyond May 8th.
I think that's a reasonable assumption that we want to be able to get money to the people who need it now as kind of an emergency relief.
Right.
But we also recognize that, the crisis will evolve, and we might want to be able to reserve some funds for, the next wave of what it's going to hit. So, there's nothing that obligates us to, distribute every last dollar and kind of earmark it to particular organizations at this point.
Can you send the council, if you haven't already, the list of organizations that have been contacted and that have kind of submitted applications?
Yes, I can help you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
And Hannah, just so I'm kind of with Al here, I think every time we've done this, we've always been curious about who's aware.
Mhm.
The fact that May 8th is a submission guideline, but that doesn't mean it's the final deal. The biggest thing we got to do by the 19th is to make sure we have it in the right categories. We still have room. Is that what I heard you say?
That's correct. I mean, currently, if you looked at kind of a pie chart of the way that we distribute our funds, it's, 15% goes to public service, 20% goes to administration, 50% goes to housing activities. And that's kind of what we need to be approving on the 19th. So we know kind of the broad buckets of different types of activities that we'll be looking to fund.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Hannah,
And
go ahead.
sorry, David, go ahead.
Brian, go ahead.
Two questions. First of all, about oversight. Really quickly, not that we don't need to get in the weeds too much on this, but just what kind of oversight do we have? What kind of reporting do we have to get? Is it just simply you get the grant and there you go, or is there some sort of reporting that we have to do and that we also have to report up to where we get the funds from? I would imagine that exists.
Absolutely.
The
Yes.
other thing I wanted to ask, the second question, you mentioned administration as a portion of what some of the funds can be used in a typical setting. I would just want to say that I would want us to keep our administrative handling expenses to an extreme minimum with regard to this pot of money. I realize it's necessary and with the stuff we get on a normal basis, but this would be something I would like to just put on record that we'd want to try and get as much of it in the hands of people doing work out, serving people as possible. So just a comment there.
Okay, understood. Yes, about the reporting question. Yes, there are some pretty strict reporting guidelines as a subrecipient of these funds, and it is incumbent upon the city to monitor all subrecipient activities. There's a contract that's signed. We've updated our contracts now so they're consistent with all of HUD guidance, and you have to report out every year the number of people that you assist and ensure that they are kind of eligible recipients of the funds, that they're low, moderate income individuals. And there's a certain amount of paperwork that you need to keep on file for a period of time. And all of that is spelled out in the contract. We would certainly work with any current or new subrecipients to ensure that, they know what they're getting themselves into before they do. So that kind of sets them up for success.
Thank you.
Hannah, I don't know if I should ask you these questions now or later. I had some questions about slide 3 and 5 and some comments about what Al said. On that slide there, one of the big issues right now is food, in the low income communities. And so on slide 5, which is interim assistance, which is not in red, on slide 5, if you go over one more slide to slide 5, the Tuesday, May 9th says draft hearing of a 5-year consolidated plan. Is this money to be spread out over 5 years, or is this something that's sort of interim, just emergency funding for right now?
Yes, we are at a perfect storm of all things CDBG. So we are in the process of updating our 5-year consolidated plan, which sets kind of 5-year goals for how we want to kind of our 5-year goals and objectives for how we want to develop our community development program. So that's one thing we're doing. The second thing we're doing is we're updating our annual action plan, which looks at next year's funding. So that's the roughly $425,000 that we get from the CDBG and the home program. So that's also happening. And then we're doing this, which is the supplemental funding, which is what we're actually needing to do is to amend our current fiscal year's action plan. So we're doing kind of 3 things all at once. And it can be a little confusing for sure. There's kind of the current year, and then there's the future years as well.
Okay, but this, it's not necessary that this be folded into a 5-year plan. Is that correct?
No, they're just all kind of happening at the same time because of deadlines with the consolidated plan. It kind of needs to happen on the same date.
Well, to go to what each of the other council members said, I have a comment about each one of them regarding administrative expenses. My thinking, I agree with Brian completely. My thinking is that we should not have any incremental administrative costs. And so I would like to see, as indicated, if we have any administrative costs, I'd like to know what they are, because this is supplemental funding as to what Alan Tamra said, since we're not having to pick who is the actual recipient of the funding, I wonder if it wouldn't make sense to extend the May 8th date for at least a week to May 15th to give, the public greater opportunity, for input. And my other comment would be, for one, I'd like to have the slideshow distributed to us, but to go to, I think, something Tamara indicated, I'd like to see a copy of what your presentation might be on the 19th before the actual meeting. So this isn't the first time we've seen it. And if you sent this out in advance, I apologize for missing it. But, given this amount of money in a community in need, and I'd like to see as much in advance as possible, especially before we have to vote on it. And I'd like to give the public more time, especially given Mayor Pro Tem's comments, because it has been in the newspaper and it has been around, but if it hasn't hit, the right, I've talked to some people today that weren't aware of it, and, people that I thought should, be thinking about this thing. So I just throw that out there for thought, maybe extend the date. I don't know if whose decision that would be. Give us advance notice before the meeting on the 19th so that we can go through what your proposal is.
Yeah, I would love to see this date extended, this Friday, May 8th date extended. Also, I think there's a lot of stuff that's going on here, and we're kind of mixing silos, so to speak. I think with this emergency money that we have received as COVID-19 response money should just be its own thing, and that it's not, drafted or integrated into any of the stuff that you're doing on the 19th. To me, this is a piece that needs to stand alone because it is in response to this pandemic that we've been experiencing, and Rowan County has been hard hit. And we have a lot of organizations out here that are doing tremendous work that are 501c3s that kind of fly under the radar, and they need time to hear about this information and to get the application and have the same opportunity that our traditional organizations have, because they are all doing tremendous work. Also, who is going to be making the final decision? There's a panel that's going to be making a decision about who's going to be receiving the money. I want to know who's on that panel and how they were selected to be on that panel.
I've had a conversation with some of our neighboring jurisdictions about how they go about selecting, who's on the panel, who decides. Oftentimes it does come from a staff recommendation. So the panel will be made up of staff members from across the city, different departments. That's the approach that we are looking at the moment. I am happy the consolidated plan, the 5-year plan, is the one that has the more strict deadlines that we need to get a draft plan in front of council by May 19th. Obviously, there is more flexibility with the coronavirus funds. Mm-hmm. I do think that, I thought there was some urgency to get this out there to get some funding, but if the concern is more that we make sure that that everybody is aware, I'm happy to put on the brakes a little bit and do a little bit of additional outreach.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want you to hear that there's not urgency, but I do want you to hear that we need to make sure that there's enough fairness and access for people to be able to really apply for this money, and for us to have maybe a better understanding of some of the things that are happening in our community.
Hannah, just ask a question. What kind of lead time do you need before the 19th? If there was, I'm just curious, what kind of work are you doing to prepare for the 19th? Is there a few more days in your process, or you needed a week ahead of time to be able to be ready?
This is about as tight a timeline as it could possibly be for us in terms of reviewing the applications, creating the draft plan, and getting the public comment in. So this is about as tight as it can get, unless we extend it past the 19th.
Yeah.
Could we go ahead and do the presentation of the draft plan, because that is something that we do have a set deadline for with HUD, and we want to make that. We don't want to do anything that we would not be in a good position to get more money. So, and then put off maybe until the June 1st meeting, the COVID-19 process. And I know that there's such a need out there, but you know, if council is feeling that this is too compressed of a schedule, could that work? And do the other things, but just keep the COVID-19 separate.
I would support that because I think that I don't think 2 weeks makes a difference. This thing's going to run through the summer, fall, whatever. And I think we need to reach out to as many organizations as possible. Be very wise with this money, and it's important that with respect to our 5-year plan and HUD obligations that we do that right too, and it would free up some of Hannah's time. And
yeah,
that's a great idea, Mayor.
Okay.
In my opinion.
That work, Hannah?
We can make that work for sure.
Okay. Is that all right with the rest of the council? Do we need to vote on it, or do we want a consensus?
I think consensus is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then everybody's okay. I'm seeing thumbs up from some of you to just delay the COVID-19 until the first meeting in June.
I can't see anybody, but my thumb is up.
Yeah, my thumbs up. I think that
now, do we need a way to get some feedback from Hannah and Miss Edwards in terms of, how the process is, or we're just going to open it up until June 1st to get the applications in? That's my question.
Oh, till June 1st.
Yeah,
okay.
till June 1st.
Okay.
Or June, whatever our meeting date is, or maybe it's June 1st.
I think that, don't they need some advance notice so they can, but we're just picking buckets. We're not picking recipients.
Right. On the first meeting in June, we're just choosing buckets, and then, that would give more time for more people to know about this and to make application, because that's what I'm hearing that our council is concerned about, is that we want more time to make sure that we are reaching out into the community and getting as many people and groups that are doing great things to have an opportunity.
Well, let me just make a motion so we can get this on the record. Is that okay? I'll make a motion that we extend until June the 1st, the period of time in which members of the organizations that meet the criteria in the community may apply for the COVID-19 CBDG funds, and that we put off until at least June 1st our decision as to where to allocate those funds.
Okay, we have a motion from.
I have a question before we vote.
Okay. All right.
Hannah, if our first meeting is June 2nd, how much lead time would you need to be able to have this item on the agenda on June 2nd?
So there needs to be a 5-day public comment period before you all can vote on anything, and that's kind of the major restriction. But I would also like to get a presentation to you with the agenda packet, which is a week in advance. Sure. And so therefore, let me think about that. At least 10 days out from the meeting, I would like to have the applications at least due, so we've got some time to work on it.
So David, what I'm getting at, David, is May 22nd would be right. 10 days.
Exactly. exactly. I was going to amend that to say May 22nd, Brian, if it's okay with.
That's what I was going. Yep.
Okay, I think that makes sense. So that gives us more than almost 2 weeks, or more than 2 weeks more for the process. Okay, which is what I think I was hearing from most council members, that they thought more. So we have a motion by David that he's amended to make it May 22nd as the deadline, to extend the deadline for the applications for the COVID-19 funds. So we have a motion. All those in favor, by aye and your name.
Aye, Al Higgins.
Hi, David Post.
Aye, Brian Miller.
Aye, Cameron Sheffield.
Aye, Karen Alexander. So we have a motion that is unanimous. So thank you so much, Hannah. Do you have more for us?
Yes. Yes, we do have more, because this is the public hearing. This is the official
Okay.
public hearing for the use of these funds. And so I hope Candace has her vocal cords warmed up, because we've got, I believe, 9 comments that people have been submitting online. And we need to read them into the record.
Okay, Candace, the floor is yours.
Oh,
I'm gonna try to share my screen, but I see Hannah, yours is still up. You can't share.
I just stopped it, so hopefully.
Okay. Okay, so it's the same slideshow that you were seeing?
Okay.
Everyone?
Yes, we can see it, or I can see it. Can everyone see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start reading the public comments that we received. Some of them are quite lengthy. Bear with me. I have water with me. And I've been practicing. So our first comment is from Andrew Lukey of 413 West Glenview Drive. And he says, I would like to see a portion of the funds be used to acquisition, rehab, resale section of the project, as well as public improvements and infrastructure. It's a great opportunity to continue to develop downtown and the surrounding areas. As well as supporting struggling citizens, it's critical to focus on attracting future growth as well. And a grant is a great way to use that advance the plans outside the city budget. Our next comment is from Shirley Henderson of 1228 Bailey Avenue, number 8. She says, I'm interested in if it can help pay my bills.
No joke.
Our next comment is from A. Covington of 1020 Richard Street. Portable hand washing stations, public bathing stations, water bottle filling water station. Our next comment is from Krista Woolley of 315G Moxville Avenue. The Community Care Clinic of Rowan County has remained open during the COVID-19 pandemic to existing and new patients. People who find themselves without insurance can apply for services online at our website. Any documentation can be easily emailed or faxed to the clinic in keeping with the hands-free safety recommendations. The staff and the board of directors have been hard at work for the last 3 weeks planning how to safely return to treating the clinic's patients face-to-face. Currently, all patients are being served through telehealth visits with our provider and receive medications via our drive-up pharmacy. All dental visits have been suspended. However, any dental issues called in are triaged by the staff with instructions given to the patient. There is an abundant of literature and guidelines to suggest the appropriate way to run an outpatient clinic safely during this pandemic. But very few, screen has got something on it. But very little on how to sustain this long term with limited funding. Therefore, the clinic respectfully requests CDBG COVID-19 funding to support the next 6 to 8 months of operations specifically designed to accommodate an increased number of people who find themselves uninsured and to potentially support a second part-time provider in light of a decreased volunteer pool. Beginning mid-May 2020, tentative based on the governor's guidelines, the dental clinic will reopen to patients for emergencies only. Additionally, the medical clinic will begin seeing patients who are not sick with fever in the clinic. Telehealth will continue for those who are acutely sick. In order to do so, the following must occur. Number 1, glass will be installed at the reception desk and pharmacy window. Number 2, pharmacy will remain a drive-up, which must be staffed by an employee in full PPE. Number 3, patients will be screened outside by infrared no-touch thermometers by staff members in full PPE, gloves, masks, gowns, cave gear. Number 4, patient appointment times will be staggered to protect from cross-contamination. Each will be offered hand sanitizer and a mask before entering the facility and will be asked not to touch anything. They will be escorted directly to the treatment room. Number 5, all providers will wear above PPE as well as face shields and shoe boots. Number 6, deep cleaning will take place between each patient to include wiping down all surfaces, floor and treatment tables, and dental chairs. Each room will be sprayed with Lysol and closed for at least 15 minutes between patients. Number 7, staff will monitor the schedule each day for those who have tested positive for COVID-19 in Epic. Each patient who has will be required to have 2 negative tests before returning in person to the clinic, CDC guidelines. Number 8, in anticipation for increased patient numbers due to high unemployment and continued potential spread of the virus, the clinic will continue telehealth visits for at least 12 additional months and indefinitely for 6 points. Some key learnings have taken place during COVID-19, including patients who scheduled their follow-up appointments during their lunch break while at work. For many of our patients, lost time at work means less pay. For others, transportation is an issue. Telehealth has helped to cut down on both and will remain an option for any patient who is unable to be seen in person. Thank you for this opportunity. As always, it is a blessing to be in service to our neighbors in need. As you know, our goal is to improve the health of most vulnerable citizens so that they, in turn, can be productive, happy, and healthy. The gift of good health spreads through a person's life in all directions. Thank you in advance for your consideration. Our next public comment is from Rafi Cabanat of 301 Laurel Valley Way. The CARES Act CDBG allotment should be used for direct emergency rental assistance on behalf of tenants in arrears of rent for the months of March, April, and May 2020. CARES Act CDBG direct assistance should also provide rental support on behalf of tenants into subsequent months, June, July, etc., on a rolling basis until the governor lifts all executive orders related to COVID-19. After the governor releases the orders, there should be at least a month grace period of direct rental assistance provided. Criteria for eligibility should be uniform and set by the city in advance of providing funding to grantee nonprofits, and there should be uniform record-keeping requirements for nonprofit grantees detailing manner of using the funding. There should be a 5 to 10% cap on administrative indirect costs on any grant provided to a nonprofit. Our next comment is from Walter Vaughn of 112 Sycamore Road. Investing in equipment for demolition. We have a bunch of buildings, property, etc., that will require demo work. This would be an excellent time to invest in equipment infrastructure. Our next comment is from Ron Turbyfield of 204 East Ennis. I am Executive Director of Communities and Schools of Rowan County. I am interested in details about how nonprofits can submit requests for COVID relief grant funding. Our next comment is from Cindy Fink of 104 Yorkshire Drive. Please consider granting these funds to organizations that are meeting essential needs in the community. Our local nonprofits are stretching to meet local needs for meals, groceries, toiletries, supplies, and more. These agencies are the experts at providing services to children, seniors, adults, homeless, unemployed, underemployed, etc. Many of the agencies serve the entire county, but the largest population served is usually located in the city of Salisbury. Local nonprofits have the processes, procedures, criteria, and accountability to manage grant funds and see that they are used in the best interest of the city of Salisbury. Specifically, we at Meals on Wheels are seeing the need for home-delivered meals for seniors who cannot or should not leave their homes, the need for purchase and delivered groceries for adults who are at high risk for infection. Thank you again for your efforts. Cindy Fink, Executive Director of Meals on Wheels. Okay, this is long. Let me get a drink of water. Our next public comment is from Kenna Grubb, 226 North Long Street. Thank you for giving Rowan Helping Ministries an opportunity to provide input on how the city uses Community Development Block Grant COVID-19 funding in our community. The global pandemic has brought unprecedented change to our community, and we realize that we will not return to life as we know it. At Rowan Helping Ministries last year, we served nearly 4,000 individuals and family members through crisis financial assistance, shelter services, food programs, and programs to help them find affordable housing and jobs. Of the households we serve, 78% are below 100% of the poverty level, and the net 11% are between 100% and 150% of poverty level. 99% of the households we serve fall below 200% of the poverty level. Last year, we provided financial services to the following demographics: Black African American, 49%, Caucasian, 31%, Hispanic, 3%, multi-race, 6%, other, 11%. Since March 1st, we have added 217 new households crisis assistance clients. We have changed our entire service delivery system to keep clients and staff as safe as possible from COVID-19. We now provide drive-through pantry service, food pantry services, grocery delivery for seniors, and immunocompromised individuals take out meals in Jeannie's kitchen and perform crisis assistance interviews by phone. We have added an isolation shelter for homeless citizens awaiting COVID-19 test results and those waiting to be cleared to enter the shelter. Through a partnership with Hood Theological Seminary, we're providing isolation shelter for families experiencing situational homelessness due to lost income caused by the crisis. We have increased our street outreach to chronically homeless individuals to find ways to connect them with services. These are just some of the ways Rowan Helping Ministries has adapted to meet the critical needs of citizens during this pandemic. We don't know exactly what the coming days will bring, but we are preparing for several issues we see on the horizon as we wait for a vaccine that will end the spread of COVID-19. Continue. Bills will come due. To temporarily relieve their financial burdens, many citizens who have lost jobs are getting unemployment and stimulus checks if they qualify and have successfully filed. Landlords and utility companies have helped by suspending evictions and disconnects due to unpaid rent or utility bills. But soon those bills that have accumulated will need to be paid. We expect the agencies like ours that provide crisis financial assistance will be flooded with requests for rent and utility assistance to help citizens pay their bills and remain in their homes. Our community needs to be prepared to stabilize these families financially and keep them from becoming homeless while they work to find jobs and get back on their feet. The consequences of not making this a priority will be devastating to the individuals and families in crisis, as well as to our social service system. We are working diligently to seek all possible sources of funding to support this critical need. One of the populations we serve, the working poor, is most at risk for this scenario because they live paycheck to paycheck and jobs do not provide a living wage or health care benefits. We anticipate having to double the financial support we normally provide, as well as serving these citizens through our food and employment programs until they secure stable income. Help shore up nonprofits. Many nonprofits that serve as safety nets for citizens in crisis have also been hit hard by the effects of COVID-19. Our expenses have increased during this time as we serve more clients, expand services, use more PPE and cleaning supplies to help to keep our environment safe and compensate for a huge decrease in volunteer participation by adding staff. CDBG COVID-19 funding may not be appropriate for agency operations, but directing it towards supporting critical services that directly impact clients will have a positive impact on clients and the agencies that support them. Please be assured that Rowan Helping Ministries stands ready to continue its long history of serving those in need in our community. It will take participation from every citizen, government organization, nonprofit agency, and business to combat this pandemic. But I am confident our community will emerge from this crisis stronger, wiser, and ready to embrace opportunities that lie ahead. Our next comment is from Francis Foster, 1012 Westlake Drive in Kannapolis. The socioeconomic challenges presented by COVID-19 pandemic cannot be overcome without venturing into new territory to seek solutions. Unique to this economic recovery is the need to employ large numbers of citizens while employers have no money to pay them. Successful, sustainable economic recovery must reach beyond financially focused bottom line approaches to include the enormous psychosocial effects, staggering unemployment. Standing by while waiting for local businesses to be able to pay a workforce that existed in early 2020 simply will not work. Simply not work. Fortunately, there are existing programs and business models to meet this twofold challenge. Time banking and cooperative business models can jumpstart local economies without requiring cash from other community members, small businesses, and social service entities. These two models leverage existing time and talent to generate value by creating cash-free networks of exchange. These approaches to economic recovery are tried and true models that have stood the test of time. In the 1930s, they were essential to recovery from the Great Depression. Early this century, following the housing crisis, these approaches were updated by numerous initiatives, often supported by research and development by respected institutions such as Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the Schumacher Center for New Economics and Development Initiative, and Economics, and the Stanford Social Innovative Review. Successful ongoing cooperative ventures seeded by time bank exchanges include the Bronx Cooperative Development Initiative and Network of Bay Area Worker Cooperatives. A large body of scholarly research exists on how to begin these local initiatives. Continue. Briefly, time banks offer opportunities for participants to exchange services and potentially redeem service hours for goods at local businesses. Acting as an alternative currency, This creates avenues for citizens and businesses to heighten the local impact of each purchase or exchange. Finally, locally incubated cooperative businesses can incorporate time bank exchanges to serve as a source of startup funds. We must fund programs and projects that recognize the business as usual is not going to be possible for the next few years, and thus must implement new approaches and paradigms. Both immediate and long-term approaches to economic recovery begin with funding projects that include time banking and cooperative business models. We can intentionally support the local exchange of goods and services by creating and using a voluntary, locally based time exchange program. Finally, intentional efforts to embed diverse, inclusive, multi-sector collaboration are essential priorities to ensure that all citizens of Salisbury survive and flourish. Prioritizing citizens' psycho-emotional well-being as well as we are challenged by the fear and despair of soaring unemployment is essential. If the coronavirus pandemic has taught us anything, it is that we are deeply bound to the fates and fortunes of our neighbors and our neighboring communities. To create a future outshines our past, we can offer citizens meaningful opportunities for relationship building and financial progress through time. Thank you. Okay, so that concludes all the public comments that we received through today. I think we were receiving them all the way up until about 4:30. So that concludes our presentation.
Okay, and Graham, do you want to also insert here that about the leaving the public comment open? Or are we going to do that now?
I don't know that we have to leave the public hearing open. The requirement of the new law was that you can't take, there's a public hearing that's required by law. You can't take action until, well, part of the public hearing requires that you receive comment for 24 hours after the meeting. So what that means is you can't take action at the same meeting that you have a public hearing on. But we're not doing that in this case.
Okay.
Do anything as it relates to the public hearing.
Okay. All right. So that concludes our public hearing. So at this time, we will move on to item 9. Council to consider the issuance of demolition permits for the structures located at A, 39 Knox Street, B, 519 Vance Avenue, C, 1003 Grady Street, D, 1027 South Church Street, and E, 1511 West Hurrah Street. So I will turn it over to council for any comments or questions.
Are we getting a presentation on this?
Yes. Is Michael Patilia with us?
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you.
I'm having a little bit of trouble controlling my presentation. It's not wanting to cooperate. Just bear with me. I have to reload it. Can you all see that?
No, we just see your name.
Okay.
Or I do. We could see it before, Michael.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Good. Sorry about that. Okay. So good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. And tonight, we bring you 5 demolition candidates for you to consider adopting an ordinance granting code services the authority to demolish these structures. 4 of these are primary structures that are in a vacant, abandoned, and dilapidated state. All 4 have been inspected and cited under Section 10 of the Minimum Housing Ordinance, and all are suffering from different stages of dilapidation, resulting in repairs costing more than 50% of the property's assessed value. One of these cases is an accessory structure or a garage that's behind an occupied primary structure that faces the public right of way, also suffering from severe dilapidation, and has been cited under Section 14 of the nuisance ordinance. This property owner has agreed to the terms of the consent agreement for demolition. So as part of my presentation to each individual property, we'll have a slide with the name of the property owner, and a timeline, and a picture of the structure. Hopefully this will work. So the first one is 39 Knox Street. This property was initially inspected on August 20th of 2019, issued an order of compliance on the 23rd of August of 2019. The structure was posted with the hearing notice. The hearing date was scheduled for the 19th of September of 2019. No one attended that hearing. A 90-day compliance period was issued. That compliance period expired on December 21st of 2019. As of today, compliance has not been ascertained. An ordinance was created for council on the 28th of April of 2020. And I hope everyone can see that. That's the picture of the image of the property in question. The next one is going to be 1511 West Hoorah Street. This one was inspected on October 21st, 2019, and order of compliance was issued on the 23rd of October 2019. The structure was again posted with a hearing notice on the 25th. A hearing was held on on November 7th of 2019, and no one attended that hearing. A compliance date was issued at that hearing for 90 days, and that compliance date expired on the 7th of February of 2020. Just also note that all of these properties, all interested parties, whether it be heirs, banks, lien holders, were all issued notices via certified mail. The next one is 1027 South Church Street, inspected on October 21st, 2019. An order of compliance issued on October 23rd, 2019. Structure was posted on the 25th of October 2019. A hearing was held on the 7th of November of 2019, and no one attended this hearing either. Compliance date was February the 7th of 2020. The next one is 1003 Grady Street, inspected on the 21st of October 2019, issued an order of compliance on the 22nd of October 2019. Structure was posted with the hearing notice on the 25th of October 2019. A hearing date was scheduled for the 7th of November of 2019. The hearing was attended by one of the property owners, Ms. Chambers. The hearing was recorded and the minutes have been stored, and they were issued a 90-day compliance period, and she welcomed the demolition. She wanted to note that at this point, the property was beyond their repair, and she'd like to see the blight gone for that neighborhood. And there's an image of the property. The last one is going to be the accessory structure I mentioned earlier, or the garage. This one was cited under the nuisance ordinance, so it's a little bit different. Compliance is a little bit shorter. It's only 10 business days. The property owner consented to the demolition and has signed a consent form, giving us the authorization to go ahead and tear it down. I'm sorry if that image is a little weird. I tried to fix it, but I'm not very good at this. Sorry. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Michael. So do I hear any questions or comments from council?
I just have, go ahead, Tamara, sorry.
Thank you, David. So yeah, I kind of cruised by all these that I weren't familiar with. The 39 Knox Street one, I mean, it doesn't look that bad, but obviously, Michael, you're the expert. You've been in there. I'm just curious, when we see this, we don't see the specifics and the details that aren't visible. I mean, I see that although the windows have been boarded up and things like that, I just was curious because in that area, there's been a lot of people buying and redoing homes and making nice places for people to live. Is that the case here? Is this just one that's been identified and there's not a buyer like we've seen in the other ones? And could you just share a little more on that one for me, please?
Sure, absolutely. So, as some of you may remember, in years past, we identified multiple properties for demolition. On this particular street, on Knox Street, there were three, 37, 34, and 39. 34 and 37 subsequently sold their properties to avoid demolition or any liens or fees. But 39 was just beyond. No one stepped up to the plate on that one. That's how dilapidated that one was. That property sat open with a roof leak for years, for numerous years, and is sustained pretty substantial structural damage.
Gotcha. And obviously that's one thing I wouldn't be able to see.
Yeah. And in an effort to save time, I only shared one picture.
Right. Yeah. Well, I went by it and visibly it's not as bad as some of the rest of them you shared. The one on 1027 South Church Street.
Yes, ma'am.
That has a shed in the back as well. Is this demoing all of that? And that's really close to other neighbors there. So can you kind of tell us a little more about that one?
So yes, that shed will be taken down with the primary structure.
Is there a concern as close as, I mean, it's the next door. I mean, what is our policy when like it's literally a building on top of somebody's property line? I mean, there's not 25 feet between the two. Seems like there's not even that much between them. I mean, are they aware of what's going on? Was this one of the cases where nobody showed up? Nobody said yay or nay?
Well, these are all posted as public hearings. The properties are posted with public hearing signs with a hearing date and a notice. And we send letters to every single property that touches that property prior to demolition. So everyone, trust me, everyone on that block knows that that house is coming down and it's welcomed. You kind of broke up a little bit when you were asking me the question about the proximity of the houses. We've never ran into an issue with our contractors where that has been a problem. We've never, knock on wood, thus far, we've never had that issue.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
My questions were pretty much the same as Tamara's. It didn't look to me, I mean, from the outside, the first three, I don't remember which ones they were. They didn't look, so terrible. Last time you showed us stuff on the inside. Remind us, Michael, what the law is about the cost of demolition versus the property value, or isn't there some formula there?
It's 50% of the value.
If the cost of demolition,
if the cost of repairs is more than 50% of the value.
Okay. And all of these are.
Yeah, I've been in every single one of these. They're certainly dilapidated and would meet the criteria for demolition.
And you've had no objection from any of the property owners, and nobody stepping up to buy the property like Historic Salisbury did on about half the houses last year.
Yeah, no. So the one property owner I did meet with, again, Ms. Chambers, she welcomed the demolition and she knew that it needed to happen. The repairs were beyond her realm to be able to do financially, and she welcomed the demolition.
What's our cost of demolition?
For I think it was $29,000 for all of them.
And that's in this year's budget, correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, in fact, I guess what is in this year's budget? Because didn't we have 100,000 in the budget?
I'm not sure what's left right now. I couldn't tell you. Last I checked, it was somewhere in the 70,000 range.
That was left or that was in the budget?
That was left.
Okay.
So we have plenty of budget to do these.
Yes. Oh, yes, definitely.
Well, I've heard from some neighbors of some of this property that they are extremely excited. So I think
So am I.
it's a good thing. So do I hear a motion from any councilman?
Do you need individual motions or can we make a motion for all 5?
Individual motions for each property.
I'll make a motion to adopt an ordinance in order to order the demolition of a dwelling unit for human habitation located at 39 Knox Street in the city of Salisbury, North Carolina.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman David Post, and if you're in favor, by aye and your name.
Aye, Tamara Sheffield.
I,
Opposed.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Brian? What's your vote?
Trying to get off mute. Sorry. Aye. Brian Miller.
Okay. And David Post?
Interrupted Al. I, David Post.
Okay. And David, Mayor Pro Tem, do you want to do your vote again so that you're not interrupted?
no. I think we just both said it at the same time.
Okay. And I, Karen Alexander. So we have a unanimous vote to demolish 39 Knox Street. So
I can make the next motion, since I used to live in this property. It was the first house that I lived in Salisbury, actually.
Wow.
wow.
And that building was that bad back then, just so. So it's a long time coming. I'm glad to see that we're helping out this owner make that happen. So I move to adopt an ordinance to the order of demolition of a dwelling unit for unfit for human habitation located at 519 Vance Avenue in the city of Salisbury, North Carolina.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilwoman Tamara Sheffield. If voting for aye or voting for demolition, signify by aye and your name.
I, David Post.
I, Al Higgins.
Aye. Brian Miller.
Aye, Tamara Sheffield.
Aye, Karen Alexander. So motion carries unanimously.
I'll do the next motion.
Okay, thank you.
A motion to adopt an ordinance to order the demolition of a dwelling unit unfit for human habitation located at 1003 Grady Street in the city of Salisbury, North Carolina.
Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Al Huggins. And to vote aye, signify aye with your name.
Aye,
I,
Tamara
David
Sheffield.
Post.
So that was an aye for David Post and an aye for Tamara Sheffield at the same time. Okay.
I, Al Higgins.
And
Aye. Brian Miller.
aye, Karen Alexander. Motion carries unanimously to demolish 1027 South Church Street. Okay, for the next one.
For the
Anyone-
record, I think the last one was for 1003 Grady Street.
Yes, it
Okay.
was.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. I'll read the motion for 1027 South Church. Motion to adopt an ordinance to order the demolition of a dwelling unit for human habitation located at 1027 South Church Street in the city of Salisbury, North Carolina. I, Brian Miller.
Have a motion and a vote from Brian Miller. If you're supporting it, by aye and your name.
I, Al Higgins.
I, David Post.
Aye, Tamara Sheffield.
Aye, Karen Alexander. So we have a unanimous vote to demolish 1027 South Church Street. I hear a motion for number E. 1511 West Hurrah Street.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt an ordinance to order the demolition of a dwelling unit unfit for human habitation located at 1511 West Hurrah Street in the city of Salisbury, North Carolina. I, Brian Miller.
Okay, we have a motion and a vote from Brian Miller.
Aye.
And we have an aye vote from Al Higgins
I,
I
Tamara
didn't
Sheffield.
oppose. Sorry.
and aye from Tamara Sheffield and an aye for David Post and aye for Karen Alexander. So we have completed demolition for unanimously for 1511 West Hurrah Street. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, council members.
Thank you.
Ma- Madam
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes,
could I ask the council's privilege for a 5-minute recess?
yes. 5-minute recess. Councilman Miller has returned, so we will move on to the next agenda item. Number 10, council to consider approving a 1-month trial period for the closure of the 200 block of East Carr Street between North Lee Street and Depot Street for the Salisbury Farmers Market each Saturday from 7 a.m. until 1 p.m. beginning May 9th, 2020. And Wendy Brindle is going to do the presentation.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this request is coming on behalf of the Rowan County Tourism Authority and the Farmers Market. And beginning this Saturday, they are planning to begin the Farmers Market event located in the green area that you see on your slide. This is Carr Street. You can see the railroad, and this is between Depot and Lee at the Rail Walk area. The street theater is to the left. So to make the event more accessible, they would like to close a portion of the 200 block of Carr Street, as you can see here, between Depot and Lee. This would be the request is for a long-term closure every Saturday for the whole farmers market season, but we want to do a month trial period to see how everything works, and then come back to you in June with a final recommendation. But if you approve the 1 month trial, they will use type 3 barricades that for the first month will be provided by our Public Works Department. James Meacham has been working with Craig Powers for those, but Mr. Meacham has also indicated if this approval is granted for the extent of the season that they will be purchasing their own type 3 barricades. They will also be providing sandwich board type signage to direct people to parking. And we will not require a detour to be posted since this is a grid street type pattern and it's easy to navigate. So if there are no questions, we would just ask that council consider granting a month trial period for the closure of the 200 block of Carr Street for the farmers market event.
Hey, Wendy, I just have a quick question, just so I'm clear. When we cross the railroad tracks, we still can turn?
Yes, you'll be able to turn left onto Depot Street.
And we'll still be as the parking lot that rail walk gallery.
Now, you won't be able to drive through and enter through the structure, but yes, you can drive around the block and access the parking lot or access it next to the railroad and around the back like you can currently.
Yeah, the parking lot that's actually in that corner across from Lee Street.
The one in blue.
Oh, this one.
No, the other one.
This
that
one. So
Yes,
that one, yes, that one will be signed for event parking, and Mr. Meacham indicated he would like this to be reserved for seniors and handicap parking, and they will sign that as such,
Gotcha.
so they can have easy access to the event.
Okay, great. Thank you.
That's great. Any other questions from council? So do I hear a motion?
I think Mr. Post is speaking.
Oh,
but he's
You're
muted.
thinking, I'm sorry. David. You're muted.
There, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Are we looking at the panel or are we looking right now, or are we looking at the drawing still?
We're still looking at the drawing.
Okay, but Wendy, what are the hours?
I'm sorry. So the hours would be each Saturday from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. And the closure could possibly be removed before then, but they wanted ample time to make sure they had time to get set up and break down.
Are the Kettners donating the parking to us?
Mr. Meacham has arranged all of that through his contacts. So this request is coming through him. So in my conversations with the Rowan County Tourism Authority, I'm under the understanding he has handled all of those details.
Mr. Kettner is a board member of the tourism.
Well, John is.
John is.
Lynn, of course, owns the property, or one of their companies does. The reason I was asking is if they're donating the use of the parking lots, we ought to send them a thank you. And up on Lee Street, there, it looks like there's a half, is that a half barricade?
Yes, so we don't want traffic entering this area because there won't be anywhere to turn around.
Mhm.
So the hard closure will be where you see these two long lines. This one will be a barricade that says road closed to through traffic. This will also, the reason we're doing this is to allow people to come out of this parking lot and
Right.
leave heading west.
Thank you.
I do have a question. This is May 9th, the day after moving into phase 1 for the reopening of North Carolina.
Good question.
So is there a COVID-19 plan in place for the farmer's market? I mean, I do understand that it's outside, but I know that it's going to be important. And the governor and Dr. Cohen were asking us to please do those 3 W's: wear the mask, wait 6 feet apart, and of course the washing of the hands. So what's the follow up with that, or is there anything in place yet?
Yes, so Mr. Meacham also indicated that they will be following all of the COVID-19 regulations with the opening of the market. He also, and I failed to mention this, I'm glad you brought that up. He also has provided us proof of insurance. It's not related to COVID-19, but the Tourism Authority will actually be providing insurance to cover any incidents that would happen to take place within the street right of way. But he did indicate that they would follow all of the COVID-19 regulations.
If I could ask one more question. That was a great question, Al. I meant to ask that. Thank you. There's some people that think that these regulations are ridiculous. Are we going to have masks and hand sanitizer available at the entrance to or in the farmer's market for people that show up without that and insist on going?
That would be a question for the farmers market and Rowan County tourism. This is a request. We're considering them a private entity. This isn't city sponsored, but I can definitely follow up with James to get his answer concerning that.
Do we have to approve this without knowing the answer to that?
This is for the road closure, so the event could happen without the road closure. And I'm trying to see if I could text him to find out. I don't know if I'll get an answer quickly enough if he's watching.
He's on the call right now.
He's on the call, so
I wonder if Kelly could release him to speak. Would that be possible?
Kelly, could you release Mr. Meacham to speak?
Yes, let me try.
Okay, thank you.
That way you're getting it straight from the
Be careful.
straight from the source.
I don't see his name on here as an attendee.
I don't see him on the call as an attendee. He may be watching the live stream.
Okay.
That,
Then text him, Wendy.
Mayor, could I just,
Yes.
when I go to Food Line or to Harris Teeter, I don't see those grocery stores don't have that for the other customers. And if they're going to practice social distancing and it's outside, the other thing I would point out with this is that you have reports of food shortage and farmers having to let crops rot in the fields. I think this addresses all of that. And I understand the concern about social distancing and safety, but the council may be getting to an area that doesn't have anything to do with what the request is.
Okay.
Yeah, and I hear that, Mr. Bailey, that it may not have anything to do with what the request is, but I think it's certainly a valid question, because I think that we all have to be responsible for trying to lead around our public health in every way that we can. I think that has been the message that I think I keep hearing on this community leadership. that as we model the behavior to help keep us safe, that it helps our whole community. I mean, so how can we be a healthy partner as we begin to reopen, North Carolina in a way that we really do try to embrace and encourage the wearing of masks, the waiting apart of 6 feet, and keeping our hands. So at the event that day, will there more than just a sanitizer? Do we have any of these fountains, that are portable that run some water so that people can use soap and water to clean their hands? The CDC and the health department is saying that there's nothing better than the soap and the water. I just want us to really engage in some thinking around that so that we can be the city can be a good health partner as we move forward around COVID-19.
Mr. Bailey, does the city have any right at this moment to enforce anything?
I don't know the answer to that. I'd maybe defer to the city attorney on that.
So can you weigh in, Graham?
Well, I'll just say the request is to close the street, so the city can close the street, has the authority to do that, and has the authority not to close the street. As to the ability of the farmers market to operate, I was just looking back through the initial stay-at-home order, and certified farmers markets are included as an essential business. Same as Mr. Bailey was pointing out, the grocery stores, et cetera. So as far as can they operate, I believe they could operate even under the order before it.
Without any additional.
Well, I mean, they're essential businesses, but essential businesses are still required to follow social distancing and all of those protections to the extent that they're able. So I think that
I can't. You're breaking up. Right.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
That's better.
That's better.
Okay. They're an essential business. The order requires essential businesses to comply with social distancing if they can. The order that was just
You're breaking up again.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Restrictions, and I just got the list of them forwarded along to you right before the meeting started. So I've been trying to educate myself as we've gone along. They ease the restrictions. So even under this order, as it stands, farmers markets could operate. So I don't think anything about this order would necessarily change the farmers market's ability to operate. But I think that the message is clear from first order and from this order is to comply with all of the restrictions around social distance. Wash your hands and wear face coverings, and like I said, wait 6 feet apart when you're checking out, and so all of that stuff is still in effect.
So all we're doing is approving.
We can't. Oh, I think you're talking, David.
Oh, I'm sorry, Al. Excuse me.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to go back to the questions the mayor posed around enforcement. I think with all the restrictions in place, under the order, it is the duty of the sheriff's department and the police department to make sure that people are following those guidelines. Now, I'm not saying that the police should be out there and hammering people over the head and saying, put on a mask. But I think that we could do something to encourage people, in a way that is community oriented, to say this is just for our public health, and we just want to remind you, wait 6 feet apart. Are the vendors going to have the tape down there? Can we get the mask? Just something to encourage this behavior.
With all due respect, I think you're doing it right now. I don't think we can do that for every grocery store and every hardware store and all the other things that are considered essential businesses. I think you're raising the point of saying, hey, let's make sure we're responsible about how we do this is a great point, but it's not our job to do that. If someone doesn't feel like it's appropriate for them to be there, they don't have to go. But if somebody's looking forward to an opportunity of going out and picking up some fresh vegetables at the farmer's market, they will have that opportunity, whether we block the street or not. frankly, blocking the streets safer for any of those folks who do show up. So I think we're getting outside of our area of concern. It's really a question of whether or not we want to block the street for pedestrian safety or we don't, in my mind.
I mean, that's our only issue is whether to block the street or not, right?
Yes. That's the issue at hand in terms of the motion.
Yeah, that's the issue at hand in terms of the motion, but I think I respectfully disagree that we may not have a part in this in terms of what we are responsible for and what we're not responsible for.
I also have Mr. Meacham on the phone, and I can put him on speaker if you would like to hear from him directly.
Yes, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah, well, good evening, council. I was watching on Twitter, so I wasn't able to jump directly in. First of all, thank you all for considering this issue with the farmers market and supporting the redevelopment project that we did down the rail walk. The city attorney referenced the points that we followed up directly with Chris Solis, the county manager in the health department. They're aware of the opening even before the May 9th date. They also were aware of an essential operation. The farmers did want to delay till the 9th versus their earlier day would have been in April. And specifically for that is for them to address any of the areas of your concern. The setup that they're doing is putting their booths further apart so that they can have ample space between each locations, also being outdoors. We're hoping that's more open air access. As far as the other things of hand sanitizers and face masks, it's my understanding that those are not legal requirements in terms of a customer going to do a business in the state of North Carolina, or that they're legal requirements to vendors. However, each vendor is very well aware of that. They're doing every effort they can to bring their own hand sanitizer for guests to use, in addition to wearing their own face coverings. I don't believe that we have the legal authority to mandate that to them because I haven't seen that in the executive order. But we are trying to be best practices. They want to do everything they can to make their customers feel safe. That's part of the reason we're also securing the parking lot, which the Kedners did donate. That was a request that came up, not charging us for any of those lots, to also provide better access for seniors to get food. Part of the hope of getting the market up and running is so that seniors, the more vulnerable population, according to the data with COVID, don't have to go to a grocery store or don't have to go to a super center to get their produce. They can come to a place like this. So we're going to be doing everything we can. We're going to try to learn as we go on the fly. But social distancing and cleanliness are our priorities. Although we're not going to turn away, I don't think farmers want to turn away someone who comes up without a face mask on. Versus only allowing people with face masks, because I don't think legally they can do that, or that we can legally mandate that folks do that. But I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I do appreciate y'all's consideration of closing the streets. One more measure with the street closure is we felt it also gave us a little better opportunity to socially distance vendors and allow more free access for pedestrians to stay within the market, but not have to be close to other individuals or other vendors.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Meacham.
Thank you.
So with that, do I hear a motion on the issue at hand, which is to allow
I'll make a motion to approve a 1 month trial period
okay,
for the closure of the 200 block of East Carr Street between North Lee Street and Depot Street for the Salisbury Farmers Market each Saturday from 7 a.m. until 1 p.m. beginning May 9th.
and that will go for a month,
Yes.
the trial month. Okay. So we have a motion from,
Should we define the end date?
that's what I was going to ask.
Okay. And ending on
I don't have a calendar.
ending on June.
Just say June 15th will give us.
Through and including June 6th.
Okay. June, so through June 6th.
I have, but are we allowed to discuss this now? The motion's on the floor.
Yes.
We have a meeting on the 2nd. I think we should put this on the agenda.
Yeah.
Make sure this comes up on the agenda on June the 2nd, because otherwise it would not be available to be open for another couple weeks since this motion only does that, unless we want to extend it until June the 13th, which is a little more than a month, in which case we could assess it on June the 16th. Is there any, I'm just curious.
I would suggest you go with the second of the two cases.
Okay, so I'll amend my motion to have, may I restate it, please?
Yes, please restate.
Okay. I make a motion to approve a trial period for the closure of the 200 block of East Carr Street between North Lee Street and Depot Street for the Salisbury Farmers Market each Saturday from 7 a.m. until 1 p.m. beginning May 9th, 2020 through and including Saturday, June 13, 2020.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by David Post. In order to signify you are in agreement, I and your name.
Aye, Tamara Sheffield. Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Sorry.
We have I from Tamara Sheffield, and I believe I heard Mayor Pro Tem Al Higgins say aye as well.
Aye, David Post.
Aye, Brian Miller.
Aye, Karen Alexander. So the motion carries unanimously to allow the street closure for the farmers market. Thank you, Wendy and James Meacham, for being available to answer a question. Okay, we will move on to item number 11, City Attorney's Report.
I don't have anything for the council tonight, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, City Manager's Report, number 12.
You're on mute, Lane.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Emailed City Council this afternoon some information from Craig Powers, our Public Works Director. And we're continuing to work on the budget. And we heard feedback in the last work session, or not work session, but just informational session on the budget about concern about fees. And I mentioned that the landfill fee and the waste collection fee were as the highest that they would be in terms of an increase. But through his efforts, we've able to eliminate those fees. There was also a question raised about the recycling fee. And someone raised the question, if we were to go to a once a month collection rather than continuing the bi-weekly collection, could we avoid a fee increase? We spoke with the low bidder and they were not interested in a once a month pickup option, but our existing vendor said that they could do that. And if we would do that, we could continue without a fee increase in terms of recycling. And that would keep the recycling, all the rates would stay the same in terms of those fees for our residents. Again, if we were to go with the vendor, and we have cut this as much as I think we can, we'd be looking at a 94-cent increase there to go with the bi-weekly collection. I think the once a month would work for some. The current concern that I have, the concern I think Craig Powers has, is sometimes I struggle to remember, is recycling this week or next. But once a month, I think that's going to be even more of a problem for our citizens to remember, is this the month that they're picking up recycling? And I also think that it may not be enough service for most residents, but I just wanted to get council to if you've got concern and would like to look at the once a month, we can do that. We have not signed the contract yet, so we can do that, but we can't kick this can too far down the road, or we're going to be facing some deadlines.
Last time, as you know, I voted against it, and my question was whether Waste Management would consider just a 2 or 3 month extension so that our back is not up against the wall on this thing, to give us time to make the decision. I would presume they would just continue under their existing contract for some period of time. My concern, like I said before, is only 57% of this people use it, and 70% we're paying a recycling firm to put it into a landfill because people don't comply. I'd like to see us have a label on top that says, you know, what you do. I think we need to educate the public, but, you know, really only 15% of what we're picking up is actually being recycled as it is. And I've gotten a lot of kickback on this thing. I'm sure other people have too. And I just would, like I said last time, I would like to have more time to think about it if waste management, because do we have to, I guess one question is if we're going to do a different system once a month, do we have to get bids on this? Because we had bids on the other. I mean, do we have to do bids all over again?
I don't think so, because we bid the service. The low bidder was not interested in a once a month collection. Our existing vendor would do it once a month, but I do anticipate we're going to have a lot of questions. The Public Works Department is going to get phone calls all the time that they didn't pick up my recycling. It's next week, or they're going to get phone calls saying, I thought it was next week, but they came by. And I think we have some of those challenges now with it bi-weekly. If we go to once a month, I think that's going to be a bigger problem.
Well, I mean, I've had a place in Florida where they have a label on it, you know, first Wednesday, third, second Tuesday. I mean, could we have a label on the can that says, this is your day of the month. It's the third Tuesday or the fourth Monday or whatever. And it also shows what you can put in it. So we have less non-conforming materials, like glass is a big issue that's going into those things everywhere internationally. I mean, could we label it to help people out?
We can do that. I think there's a limit to how much you can do. Some people put other stuff in there, and education can only, there's a limit to how much you can educate folks on this without having some way.
Lane, our website has a wonderful picture of what is allowed and what isn't allowed that could be printed into a label, you know, an 8x8 label, and put it on it. But we could also have another label that says your pickup dates. I mean, is that possible?
We can do that. That may have been one of the things that in cutting the budget, we may have cut some of that, and it may be a little more 94 if we do that. But we can look at some of those options. If the council wanted to explore a once a month option, they could do that. If there was extreme heartburn over the fee increase for recycling, that's a way to avoid that.
Lane, I wanted to ask you another question. If we, for instance, just to talk about the options, if you cut out all of the recycling, would your garbage collection not increase exponentially because they would be picking up recycling with the garbage?
The only thing that would go up would be our landfill costs there, because the trucks would be making the same, the routes wouldn't change at all. Now, they may have a slight increase in some fuel costs for the trucks, because if the trucks fill up sooner, they'd be making more trips to the landfill. But the big cost would be, you'd see additional landfill costs. Those costs would be less than what we're paying the recycling vendor, though. So you'd probably net positive. And that's not something that's easy to say, but recycling costs us more money than providing that service costs cities more money. And that's not unique to Salisbury. The cheaper option certainly would be to not do it. I'm not advocating that, but it would be less expensive.
But in being less expensive, we wouldn't save the entire 94 cents if we didn't go to recycle.
No. Okay.
That's what I wanted to. So then it becomes a question of, is it 50% of that 94 cents?
That's a 94 cent increase.
That's right. But yeah. I'm saying if we if we turned it all into garbage, we still would have an increase.
Yes.
Okay.
Lane,
Council weigh in.
I have a question on this. If we do once a month, that means we keep Waste Pro, is that correct?
Yes.
Waste
So we
management,
wouldn't be
waste
switching,
management.
Waste management. Yeah, waste management.
okay, we would not be switching out the cans, which causes chaos for people already, so the scheduling with that, I think that's a wash. We were looking at signing the contract. How long would we be signing this contract for this once a month deal? Because this could be something that if it's just a year, we understand the unique situation that we have. This is something that we could, have to resort to for 1 month to save that 94 cent piece. I mean, we're looking at other fees already. This could be a solution to that for a time frame, for 1 year. And then just to know that we wouldn't be locked in for 3 years.
I think we could do a 1-year contract on this if that was the council's pleasure to do that. The firm was ready to end the relationship anyway. So I think they might be willing to once a month.
And that would be with the current vendor.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So council, what is your pleasure?
I'll just throw my 2 cents in and we'll see where we go. But, I don't think a 94 cent increase per month is a significant cost. So for me, I don't, you're talking $12 a year. That's something that can be borne. I realize that times are tough, but that's not a huge expense. I'm fine with that. However, I did ask Lane, if we change the frequency of pickup, could we find some way to avoid the increase? And that's where this came from. I can speak from personal experience, and granted, my reality may be different than someone else's, but there are often occasions when the truck's driving to my house and there's only a third or a half of a can that's full when they come by every 2 weeks. It's probably only a couple times a year that it's at the brim, usually around Christmas time when we've got all the stuff, the packaging and stuff from the holidays. So I think that I'm probably not the outlier. I think I'm probably more of the norm, especially if I'm putting things like glass bottles in the cans that I'm not supposed to, David. So if I've got those things redirected to the regular canister, then maybe there's going to be more room for other stuff. I do like, David, your point of being very clear about what the pickup schedule is. Providing people with refrigerator magnets or stickers for the cans or whatever mechanism we have to do to communicate this. But if you're concerned about a 94 cent increase in what we're already charging, and you think that's an onerous burden to put on the public, then let's go with a less frequent pickup. If you don't believe it's a burden, let's move forward with a replacement, and let's get beyond this particular item.
Okay.
My problem with the 94, it's not the 94 cents. I was living in Virginia when Fairfax County decided to go to recycling. And so the theory is the private sector is better at this than the public sector. And so we did recycling. Taxes didn't go down, it's just the fees went up. So the fact is that, we've got people paying $5 a month or thereabouts for this, and we didn't reduce their taxes. I don't know what happened in Salisbury, whether we reduced taxes at that time when we went to a fee for service kind of a thing. And you do get, it's only 94 cents. I recognize that. There is kickback on this I've gotten, half a dozen people reaching out to me, and none of them said, oh yeah, that's okay, go for it. It's complaints. And these are people that live in nice big houses too. They wouldn't know 94 cents if you dropped it on the ground in front of them. They might not lean down and pick it up, but nonetheless, that's the feedback you get.
Well,
yeah, and I think to some extent that's more about the fact that it's an increase relative rather than really understanding what it is that the increase was being discussed.
I think everybody doesn't like the idea of things going, being more expensive, but how much does it cost to go to a movie now than it did 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 40? I mean, everything goes up in cost over time. And part of what Mr. Bailey was recommending was that we get into a full cost recovery mode on this. So we either go to full cost recovery or we go to a lesser cost, and that's what's on the table. So I understand that people are, there's one particular person you all know who I'm talking about who's always against any expense or change that we put into these waste or recycling fees. There's 32,000 residents of Salisbury that we don't hear from, that haven't got a concern, that probably this wouldn't affect. But if it's a big enough deal, then let's just find a way to lessen the level of service, because that's what we're talking about. Lower the level of service. We might actually have a whole lot more people calling us about a lower level of service than we would the people that would complain about an extra $1 per month.
The last meeting, we discussed this budget session, and I mentioned my time in Lenore and eliminating curbside recycling, and we got more complaints after the fact, after it was advertised numerous times that we're doing that. Actually, at the public hearing, we had more complaints about that. And I think you might hear the complaints if we go to once a month from the citizens. The big concern I have, even with the stickers and they come off, is people still going to be calling, asking questions for Craig's group. And he's also texted me during this conversation because of the problems that we can try to unmute him. But he has heard from Waste Management during this meeting, and they would 3-year contract rather than just a 1 increase or 1 year extension.
They would not do a 1 year.
That's correct. That's correct. I was incorrect earlier when I said we could do it for a year. I thought that was the understanding, but he's back and forth with them, and it's no, they'd want 3.
Okay, council, time for decision and direction. Do I hear a motion?
Well, I don't know that we making a motion on this, or we giving guidance to the city manager to then put it into the budget. What is it we're trying to do here?
No, guidance is fine. Yes, yes.
Lane, just to run through it again, we were able to save on the total amount that we were going up. Can you give council and the public those numbers?
As I'd mentioned the other day, we're looking at an additional 48 cents for the landfill portion and 88 cents for the waste collection portion through some cuts made by our public works staff in the budget, some stuff we're doing with improved work order systems. We've been able to eliminate those increases. Eliminating a vacant position inside the department to cover that as well. And so that about $1.40 or some cent, almost $1.40 of increase has been taken out. And what we haven't been able to do is anything on the recycling, which is 94 cents there.
And 94 cents leaves it as we have it.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's a significant compromise. We've saved, almost 150% of the fees. And we still, I heard from so many people that do recycle that they did not want to not have recycling. So
I'm sorry, Karen, what was that?
They wanted to keep recycling.
Okay.
And they feel like that's one of our brands, because our community has always been, because of Catawba College and the Center for the Environment, there's a real commitment to that sense of sustainability. And I understand what you're saying, David, that if people don't put the right things in the recycling, it ends up going to the landfill. So I like your idea of putting the educational piece on the top of the can, and you know, this service cycle.
Yeah, my concern last time was really about timing. I mean, you know, it was the fact that we didn't have any time to react to it all. And I'm very grateful to Craig and to Lane even right now, you know, trying to gather as much information as possible. I think Brian even mentioned that it would be a good idea to have these things in front of us as quickly as possible.
Right.
But, you know, I think they've done a great job, actually.
I think so too. I mean, that's a significant savings in fees. And I mean, we do have to be cognizant that if we don't pay for the services that at the rate that it cost us, then the next thing is going to be the tax rate's going to have to go up. So you have to balance. And the one thing about fees for service is that it is every one of our citizens that, whether they own property or not own property, are equally sharing in the cost of the fee. So while none of us want to hear increase, I think if we don't increase in one way, we're going to have to deal with it in another way.
And of course, my message has been a little different on some of the other stuff like the water rates and things like that. I mean, I think we have to recover our depreciation costs, which is basically these fee increases, because otherwise the maintenance costs, you know, just skyrocket. And my buildings are a great example where I've had to spend the cost of the building again, or the cost of buildings again downtown, you know, to get them to work because no maintenance was done for the last 7 or 8 years. And, you know, if we don't set those dollars aside now for our water department and our other departments, the things that the taxpayers paying for, it's going to cost more down the road than it is right now.
Right. And I think this is another sort of example. It's not exact.
Right.
But if we don't pay for the service as it's going up, we're going to have to pay the piper now or later. So,
But just so I'm clear, we've already decided this one prior, so we don't have to do anything. And a lot of this is stuff we need to talk about when we do the budget plan. Is that correct?
well, we have an opportunity at this point to make a change or not, because we have a contract that has been bid. And nothing says that if they do the bids again, that the bids won't go up. So, I mean, that's kind of where we are.
Right, but Lane just needs to know if we want to consider this once a month, make that change or stick with what we decided in a prior meeting. These other things, the awesome savings that Craig and team have been working on, all that comes out when we have our budget discussion again, not tonight, correct?
What I heard last time, and Ms. Sheffield, I think you're ones that expressed concerns, is the fee increases, and we've cut those out. And we're looking at trying to reduce those costs. And along with that is 94 cents for recycling. We can eliminate the 94-cent increase for recycling once a month. If that's not something that council wants to consider, at some point we need to press go with this with the vendor, and we haven't executed a contract. So even though you've awarded a contract, there's no legal obligation at this point. But once we sign the contract, they're going to order 7,000 containers, and we need to, as I mentioned the last time, they can't go to Lowe's Home Improvement and pull those off. It takes a while to get those ordered, and we need to make a decision at some point on that. And I just wanted to throw that out to council. If they wanted to do that instead, we could look at that. If you're comfortable with slight fee increase for this, then we can go forward, and that'll be certainly part of the budget, but it'll be pretty much baked in at that point.
So, council, what is your pleasure?
We do nothing, we're okay, and we're going to get some cuts.
Yeah.
When we deal with the budget.
Right. because
We don't
that's
have to do
different fees. Exactly. That's not in the contract of this vendor. So the 94 cents is that we keep it with the current schedule of 2 times a month, or we save that 94 cents and eliminate it totally by staying with the same vendor and going to once a month. Is that right, Lane? I can't hear you. You're muted.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So what's our direction?
Lane, I'm good either way, whichever the council wants to go.
Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in?
I mean, I voted for this before because I understood the recycling piece. It was the other fees when we had a budget discussion that I was unclear of and was looking for more cuts. Given that we can't do this once a month thing for a year and it locks us into 3, I do not think that's the right decision. So I would have to be okay with us doing the recycling fee because we're under a contract or timeline to make that contract. That would be the only thing that I would agree to right now.
Okay. So we have 2 that are okay. All right. David?
Well, thank you. I would, even though I voted no against it, I would stick with, what council voted on last time, primarily because of the inflexibility of waste management. I don't like that inflexibility. This is a very unusual time. I also don't like the fact that, if they're going to charge us, roughly, $4.50 or thereabouts for twice pickup, but $3.50 for one pickup, there's something that shouldn't necessarily be half, but it seems that I don't like their counteroffer, and I don't like the fact that they're inflexible. I mean, my thing was, let's get some time to talk about it, and they listened to this online and said no, they wouldn't give us a 1-year contract, which I thought Tamara's idea was great. So I think we should stick with what we got.
Okay. That's any Mayor Pro Tem Haggins, do you want to weigh in? I think we might have lost her.
She's on mute.
She's on mute. Could you unmute?
Lo siento mucho. I was just saying that I'm in the same camp that Council Sheffield is in, and Councilman Miller. We've taken a vote on this, and I think, not ready to commit to that 3 years. That we just need to move forward with what we have.
Okay. All right, then I think we've heard from council, so, and I'm in alignment, so.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, I have nothing else.
Okay. So 13 mayor's announcements. I don't have any for tonight. Council comments?
None for me, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
I just have 2 quick things. Hannah, I think you're still on. I would just like to ask, because we had some discussion around demos tonight from the code enforcement. If you all could do some homework on, there are 4 houses on East 11th Street that looking very like it's near the corner of East 11th Street and North Long, like on the railroad track side. It's just a stretch of 4 houses that nobody's living there. They look in worse shape than some of these. If somebody could just maybe go and see what's going on, they might be on the radar. I don't know. I haven't seen that on a code report for the HAC, but I noticed it while looking at these other houses this past week. And then I would also like to mention the fact that today, beyond being Cinco de Mayo, is actually National Teacher Day. And I know that our teachers, as well as our parents and students, have been under some very stressful times. And I would just like to thank our school system for being ahead of it, being technology driven more so than some other counties. And all the work that Dr. Moody and all her teams in every school across all of our county, just thank you for National Teacher Day. We should thank you every day. But thanks for all that you're doing. And that's all I got.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, David, did you have anything? Councilor Poe?
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
So, oh no, that's okay. Just happy Cinco de Mayo. Just want to make sure I say that. And again, congratulations to our teachers. We love you. You do so much for us in our community and our kids. You keep us moving forward. So thank you. Just want to reiterate to Hannah and Candace, thank you for your presentation today around the CDBG COVID-19 money that the city has received. I look forward to getting the information that you'll be sending to council about the organizations that have applied and the organizations that you reached out to. Any way that I can help to get the word out to different organizations in the community, please let me know. I'll be posting this, of course, but anything that we can do to help get more people applying for the money so that we know all the great work that's taken place and there's a possibility to help them. Let's just get that done. As a city, I'm just hoping that we are going to be good health partners. I want us, maybe to do some thinking around how can we as a council, how can we as a city really encourage, that the healthy actions that we should be taking around COVID-19 so that we continue to see it go down. We don't want to see a spike in the spread. We certainly don't want to see any more deaths. Rowan County, unfortunately, is situated in our region as one of the higher areas where we're seeing cases. But I do like the fact that we have a lot of people who are recovering. So there's some good news and some hope in this as well. So let's all just continue to be safe. Let's do those 3 W's that the state of North Carolina is asking us to do, and wearing our masks and waiting 6 feet apart and continuing to wash our hands. I just want to thank the county for the tremendous work that they've been doing around COVID-19. I want to thank the city staff for what you've been doing.
Thank you. And so I would also like to thank our amazing team with the county that's really put forth a lot of effort in terms of dealing with the COVID-19 epidemic, pandemic, and that we will continue to, all of us together, look at the data and the science and make the decisions in our community to promote healthy guidelines. And I'm doing that on my own personal page. Would encourage you all to do the same. There's great ways to copy and paste, so it won't take a long time to get those message out to be healthy for yourselves, but more importantly, healthy for your family and your friends and people you don't even know, the most vulnerable in our community, so that we can have a successful reopening to our communities, which is very, very important. So thank you all in all of your efforts. With nothing else, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. I'd like to move that we adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, aye.
Aye, Brian Miller.
Aye, David Post.
Tamara Sheffield.
Aye,
Alexander. And we had it from Al. So thank you very much.
Y'all have a good evening.
Adjourn.